Hello, are you here to debate?
Oh yeah, baby.
All right, what's your name and how old are you, and what are your pronouns?
I'm Z. I'm 29, and I don't have pronouns, so you have to call me Z.
I'm sorry, say that sentence again.
I'm Z, and I'm 29, and I go by Z pronouns.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you said you don't use pronouns.
Just Z.
Okay. So Z will be
So
the
yeah,
only pronoun that you're going to use for the whole conversation?
it might be. Sometimes I slip up. This is a new thing for me. I'm trying to
I.
discover my identity.
Okay, fine, whatever. What are you here to debate about?
Communism and socialism versus capitalism.
Sure. Go ahead.
So why do all the socialist countries flood into the capitalist countries, or they end up turning to capitalism to make a profit?
Every socialist country that has existed since World War II has been destroyed from the inside out by the United States. So that would be
Hmm.
why.
So capitalism is immune to the inside out rotting.
What do you mean inside out rotting?
So you're saying from the inside it was destroyed. So that's like inside out, it was getting destroyed, kind of like a rotting apple. So you're saying capitalism is immune to that because does China and Russia not try that on America, but it just doesn't work?
China's not communist. Russia is currently not communist. Russia is capitalist. China is capitalist.
Yeah, but they would disagree with you, right? Because the CCP, the China Communist Party, rules the country and
They
has for
can
the past what,
claim
like
that they
60
disagree
years.
with me, but considering they still have private property, they would not be communist.
Oh, okay, so it's a disagreement of definitions.
Well, communism per Marx would be the complete dissolution of private property. So yeah,
Okay, so the dissolution of private property is communist. So what communist country or nation that you have an example of was successful? Or what's the model you think of when you think of a communist country?
well, considering there are no communist countries, none. My model
So
would
there's
just
just
be the ideology.
okay, go ahead. Got you. Okay, so like a utopia. There's like this
Who said
idea.
utopia?
There's the ideal.
Utopia would
What's that?
imply perfect. No system is perfect.
Okay, got you.
But if we're going to
So
talk
so
success, I would say multiple socialist countries were successful prior to and even in dealing with United States interference.
okay, like
Cuba.
what made Cuba successful? What are
Cuba
you
has a lower Cuba has a lower infant mortality rate than the US. They have a 100% literacy rate. They have more doctors per capita than the US, and they have higher life expectancy than the US. I would say, judging these metrics, seems to be more successful than us.
okay? Got you. So you would say that I guess like the Nordic countries are more successful than the U.S. and Cuba.
The Nordic countries could be. It depends on what metrics we're looking at, but I don't consider them communist or socialist. They would be
And that
capitalist countries.
and that's not Cuba today that you're talking about, right? That's
Yes, it
Cuba
is. No, that's
in
Cuba
like the
today.
past.
No, that's Cuba today.
That's Cuba today. So
Correct.
they're still you're considered that they're a socialist country.
Yes, they have they're specifically a Marxist Leninist country. Yes.
Okay, so communist is no private property, and socialism is nationalized uh, commerce, or what?
Socialism would be the workers owning the means of production. Cuba accomplishes this through a vanguard party where the workers are the political party that's in charge, and then that the political party that's in charge owns the means of production.
And but Cuba also has Guantanamo Bay where they torture. They allow the U.S. to torture people there. Is that successful?
What does
Why
that
would
have to
they
do
allow
with
that?
the what does that have to do with the economic system?
Because the a lot of times the economic system either allows or disallows for certain types of government, and then that certain types of government allows or disallows certain types of rights and moral standards. So that's why the economic system is inherently linked with the government, the type
Yeah,
of
I
government that
feel
you
like
run in that
I
country.
feel like this is just a red herring. Like, this is a nonsensical point to bring up, right? If we're talking about Guantanamo Bay is run by America. It's not run by Cuba. It just is
Yeah,
in
but not
Cuba.
in America.
Yeah, what does that matter? It's run by America.
We can't do it in America. That's why it matters.
So
The
America
only place we can do
does
it
it
is
in
in
other
Cuba because
places.
they don't have human rights.
They have human rights in Cuba. Again,
Well,
this would
that's
be
it.
run by America. America has bases on Cuba, that those bases on Cuba, the way military, I don't know if you know this, but the way military bases work is that, like, in American military base, Cuba doesn't have any authority over it. I don't know if you know this.
Right. So is that so? Cuba can be ran from the inside out by America.
What are you talking about? You're saying questions that don't make sense.
Well, we have a military base in. So you're saying a lot of times the failure of socialism or communism comes at the hands of capitalists rotting it from the inside out. Well, that seems like an inherent flaw because even in Cuba, your best example, that's happening right now.
Again, none of this is countering my actual position. You're just floundering at this point. Counter the actual position. Guantanamo Bay
Counter.
is run and operated by the US. Cuba has no input in how Guantanamo Bay is because they signed an agreement with the US allowing the US to, since 1903, it was in 1903 that they signed this agreement, the US is able to use 45 square miles of land and water as a naval base. So what they said is, oh, you know what we're going to do on this naval base? We're going to enforce a secret prison. Cuba doesn't really have any say over this right now.
And they can't have a say over it because they aren't strong enough to have a say.
They can't have a say because they signed an agreement.
Right. And why would they sign an agreement if they believed in human rights and
They
and all
signed
this
the
different
agreement.
stuff?
Again, Guantanamo Bay didn't start as a secret prison. You don't know what you're talking about, and you're trying to use it as like a gotcha. Guantanamo Bay came into existence in like 1903 as just a naval base. They didn't start using it as a prison until well after that.
So during the whole communist revolution in Cuba, they could not get rid of the capitalists on the
No,
inside
because
of
there
the
was a
country.
naval base, so the U.S. had troops there. So Cuba didn't
Well,
want to send their people to just try to fight a bunch of troops. It's a losing battle. You don't
I
know
guess,
what you're
but they use
talking
their
about.
troops
It's
to
so
fight.
embarrassing. This
They
is
use
embarrassing.
but they use their troops to fight farmers. They use their troops to
No,
kill
they
their
didn't.
own. But
No, they
they
didn't. Cuba didn't mass
yeah,
kill
they
its
did.
farmers. No, they didn't.
Land. They redistributed land and
They
took
didn't
it from
mass
people who
kill.
were farming it and
They
owned it.
did not. Nope, that wasn't the claim you made. Your claim was that Cuba used its people to mass unalive its own farmers. They didn't do that.
How
If you're
so?
gonna make a claim, stick because they didn't mass unalive their people. Try again. The people that Cuba got
Is
rid
there
of, during its first mass exodus was a bunch of wealthy farming and plantation owners that wanted to maintain the slavery that existed in Cuba, where the black Cubans were slaves. And then when Fidel Castro came into power, he said, we're no longer going to do this. We're no longer going to have slavery. We're no longer going to have segregation. They didn't like that, so they left. He literally let them leave. They left. There's a whole mass exodus about it. He didn't kill them. They left. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't even know the history of the country, and you're trying to argue it.
Well, no, I'm just going based off of what you're saying about how all these socialist and communist countries are rotted from the inside out by capitalists, and it seems like that's inherent to all of the. Is there another example where that isn't the case, where capitalists don't rot? Like it just seems like
There
that's a
has
flaw.
not
Like
been
it can't.
a single socialist country to exist since
Mm.
World War II that hasn't had direct interference from the US government to try to destabilize and destroy the country from the inside out, typically through backing coups by authoritarian dictators. There has not been a
Mm.
single one.
That seems like a flaw, right? A country can't, so it can't even hold its own against
America
a
is a
capitalist country,
larger country with more
but not larger
resources.
than China. And can happen to
Do you
China.
notice? Do you
It
notice right
happened
now?
to Maoist China.
China's not. Well, yes, the U.S. interfered to destroy Maoist China. Yes, yes, they did. Please, you
Right.
don't know
And
what
what
you're
was happening
talking
before
about.
that? What
You
was happening
straight.
in
I
Maoist
don't
China?
care
Was
what
there
was
mass
happening before. I
starvation,
don't
mass
care what
death?
was happening before that. This is the issue right here. Now you're trying to pivot to something else. The conversation is socialism bad because of is socialism / communism bad because of socialism and communism? And you're going, well, they have to be bad because they failed, yet they have never failed due to the merits of their own system. They only fail when the United States and other larger capitalist countries get involved to destroy the countries from the inside out by instilling and paying for military coups that tend to kill thousands of people in these countries, even when these countries democratically elect leaders and democratically choose to move to socialist. The United States doesn't care. They will still kill a bunch of civilians just to stop the threat of socialism, quote unquote. So maybe argue the
So,
point you're making instead of arguing some nonsense point that no one's making.
well, so in Maoist China, when they did the land grabs and the Cultural Revolution and all that stuff, um, there was mass starvation because they were putting
There's
people
mass starvation in the
into.
United States. Who cares?
No, there isn't.
Yes,
You
there
know how many
is.
people die in the United States of starvation?
Yes, there's been mass starvation in the US multiple times. Multiple times. Capitalism, there's mass
When
starvation in capitalist
there was the
countries
Dust Bowl, and
all
that was it.
there's mass starvations in capitalist countries all across the globe. Mass starvation is not socialism bad, because socialism doesn't always lead to mass starvation. You're going to name like a couple instances. I can name you plenty of socialist countries that didn't have mass starvation.
Well, that's not my argument. Argument
Yes,
is
it is.
what the government, what the communist government did, the policies they pushed is what caused the mass starvation.
Yeah,
It
did I
wasn't a
say I'm a
Dust Bowl.
Maoist? Did I
It
say I'm a
wasn't a
Maoist?
famine.
Did I say I'm a Maoist?
No,
No, I
but
didn't.
I'm comparing
You're
communism to
comparing
capitalism.
Maoism, which is its own
It's a
thing.
type of communism.
It's its own thing. I already told you what I view communism as. I'm a Marxist. I go through a Marxist perspective, and I specifically already defined to you communism is just the dissolution of private property. Now you're going over to Maoism, which is a whole different thing.
That's what they did. Mao dissoluted private property and made it all state-owned, which was the communist people.
State-owned would mean that there is
the people.
private property. No, okay. You don't know what you're talking
Well,
about.
it's the same thing that you're saying about Cuba. It is regulated through a vanguard party. It is regulated through the Communist People's Party, and that's what Mao is. You don't think Maoist China was communist? You don't think they got rid of private property?
That wasn't my claim.
Maoist China.
That wasn't my claim.
But you said it was totally different.
That wasn't my claim. My claim was that Maoism is its own thing. I might agree or disagree with Maoism. That doesn't matter. You're just pivoting the conversation, which was do communist countries.
Right?
No, you've pivoted the conversation again. The conversation, okay. The conversation is that do socialist and communist countries fail on their own merits? Yes or no? And you keep going to, well, Mao starved people. Okay.
Yeah.
Does that answer my question?
Country, right?
Does that answer my question? Do socialist and communist countries fail because of their own merits? Yes or no?
Well, in Maoist China, it was due to their own, and the only way they got out of it was by being saved by capitalists. They did the
answer
whole
the
animal
question.
Farm. Yeah, they were failed because of their own merit. That's what I said.
How did Mao's China fail? Like, how did the country? When we say fail, I mean the country in their communist system falling. How did it happen?
So the policies they pushed, which is they took away land, they got the city people to go out and work on the farms because they realized, well, this was their plan, was farming was going to be what supplied the industrialization. So there's other countries that are industrializing. We need to farm and make metal. We need to do metallurgy and farming. That's what Maoist China, that was one of their big plans. And they were able to take away land from everybody, get the people out in the city out there smelting metals and farming land. But then they realized, oh, wow, like all these people we kicked out and all these people we killed and all these people, they know how to farm and they know how to make high quality metal. Oh, shoot. Now the metal we're making is worthless. Nobody wants to buy it. And we are no longer growing stuff. And that's how a bunch of people starved. And what saved them
I'm waiting for an answer of the question. It still hasn't come. I'm just waiting for an answer to the question. You've avoided the question.
Communist policies. Those are communist policies.
You've avoided the question.
Failed.
Why did Mao's China fall?
Because they were poor.
No, incorrect.
So why did they fall? I'm confused.
Because the U.S. government backed an internal coup in China. The U.S. government paid people.
30 years.
The U.S. government. Yes, when did Mao's China fall? Do you even know? Do you even know? Like, do you even know this?
No, it doesn't. I
Yeah,
don't even really know if foul in a way.
What
It
are
just
you
was poor.
what are you talking about? You don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, then
Do
inform
you
me.
want
I'm
time?
trying
Do you
to
want
learn
time
just
to
like
Google it? I'll
everybody
give you
else in the
time. I'll
chat.
give you time to Google it if you want.
So why did Maoist China fall?
Yeah, I'll give you time to Google it. Go ahead.
Well, they were poor for a long time.
It's not an answer to the question.
So it's not that they were poor. It's something different. I consider
Countries,
that falling. I
countries,
consider that a
countries,
failure.
countries don't just fall because they're poor. So please try again.
So he had a series of heart attacks and died.
No,
Was that was that a
you don't
coup?
know what you're talking about.
Did they poison him or something? Like, I don't understand.
I,
40 to 80
I'm
million
gonna
victims died due to starvation,
I'm
prison
gonna
labor,
need you
mass
to
mass executions.
I'm gonna need you to like if you want to Google the fall of communist China, go ahead. I told you have time. Go ahead and Google it.
Mhm. So it said that it just said that he had a bunch of illness and then he died, and it was like a known thing. The Communist Party announced his death. Um, yeah, I don't see how they like couped him.
So you just are ignoring the Chinese fucking revolution that happened in 1949.
He didn't. That's when he took over power. You're talking about the
And then
coup
what
that
happened?
happened.
Okay, now keep going. Keep going. How long did Mao hold
Yeah,
power
so
for?
like 30 years from 1949 till 1976 when he died.
Now, what happened to the party in 76?
So it looks like there was Tiananmen Square. That was interesting, and it's interesting we don't get to, those poor people don't get to talk about that. And
Was there a
after
chosen
that,
real quick, was there a leader chosen by the Communist Party to take over after Mao died?
I mean, from my memory, yes, but I can find the
Who
actual
was it?
answer.
Who was it? Who was the person chosen to take over?
Oh, so you think China was a great success from 1949 to
It's not
1976?
the question that we're asking.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
I'm
but
going
you're
to need you
saying
to
you're
stick
trying
to
to
one
pinpoint a
topic.
failure.
I'm going to need you to stick to one topic.
So it
It's not
looks
the
like
question.
Deng Xiaoping.
No, Deng Xiaoping was not the person chosen to lead after Mao. Deng was the person who usurped power after Mao. I asked about who was chosen to become Mao's successor.
Oh, I just looked up Mao's successor. I don't know if there was someone chosen. So they chose for the people. So you're saying that the Communist Party chose the leader, and someone else democratically came into power, and that was the fall?
Deng didn't democratically come into power. You don't know what you're talking about. And you're trying to, like, I guess, read a Wikipedia article while you're trying to have the debate, and it's not working for you.
Yeah, that's why you should have just explained it. I know certain things about China and the Cultural
Do you not
Revolution and
notice when you're
Maoism,
trying
but
to have a conversation, and you're trying to argue about how a country's political system was dissolved, but you don't know how the country's political system was dissolved, it's not a conversation. I'm not here to be a teacher, right? You've moved to China because you couldn't defend your position in Cuba. You couldn't defend your position in any other Latin American country. So you've pivoted to China and you're going, well, China failed because of X, Y, and Z, which is not the case.
I didn't pivot. We explained. I'm explaining how
How
all of these countries
Mao's
that were
successor
communists
was
got destroyed by capitalists.
chosen by the CCP, which was the people. He was chosen by the people to chair the CCP, then was usurped by Deng.
Okay, so they had a vote? What do you mean chosen by the people? You mean by the party or by actual voting?
The
Because
party
there's
is
a
the
difference
people.
between
The party is the
okay,
people,
party.
yes.
So the people, right? That's like saying the people chose Kamala Harris. The people didn't choose Kamala Harris.
Yes, they did.
Biden stepped out. No, they didn't. They
Yes,
chose
they did.
Biden.
They chose her when
Primary,
they voted.
in the
They chose her
primaries.
when they voted for Biden in the last primary. Biden won the delegates in the most recent. He won all the delegates he needed in the most recent primaries. Biden won all the delegates.
Mhm.
Kamala was also on his ticket. We knew who we were voting for. And you know, when you vote in a president, that there's a chance that president steps down and the vice president takes over. When you vote in a president, you're also voting in a vice president. So they did choose Kamala.
Yeah, but nobody voted for Kamala.
Yes, they did when they voted for Biden.
If they voted for Kamala, she would have won
We're just
the
in
last
another
election
pivot.
when she was running against Biden.
We're just in another pivot.
No, but I'm just saying the way you define things are confusing because that's not actually.
It's not confusing.
how it
You're just
works for you.
pivoting to something else because you didn't know what you were talking about.
No, I didn't pivot. I was making an analogy. You're saying
No, you
said
pivoted.
the people chose. You said the people chose this guy, and I'm like, the people chose him or the party? Because those are two different things.
The people. The
If you
people are the
call
party.
the party the
The
People's
people
Party,
are
that
the
doesn't
party.
mean the people decided.
The people are the party.
The people are the party. What does that mean? Does that mean they get to vote
Yes.
on decisions?
Yes.
They
vote their chair. They vote in their chairman. Yep.
Okay, and there's no guise of this is who it's going to be no matter what, like in Venezuela. Like, this is who it's going to be no matter what. You can vote whoever you want, but it's going to be this guy.
Venezuela is another country that has had mass death caused by American imperialism. How many of these countries do you want to do?
So how is it caused by American imperialism? And even
America
if it,
has
and
been
I agree,
destroying Venezuela from the inside out since 2002.
Yes, and that's an inherent flaw of socialism and capitalism. Then it cannot defend itself from the inside
The
out.
flaw is that they
So why would
can't
I wanna-
defend themselves from a larger country. So again, just confirming, the flaw in socialism and communism is that the US will violently destroy it, so it shouldn't exist.
Violently destroy as in arming their own the people of that nation.
As in
right?
killing people.
No, the U.S. doesn't go into Venezuela and kill people. They give people
We've
guns.
gone into tons of countries that have tried to move to socialism and killed them. Look at what happened in Korea. We went into Korea, killed 2 to 3 million civilians, dropped 635,000 tons of bombs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do just go in and kill innocent people if they don't get with the program. If an internal coup doesn't work, we do things like what we did in Vietnam and Korea.
Well, we didn't go in and start that war. That was a war happening between those people that we took a side on.
No, Korea, we absolutely were the linchpin in that war. What happened in Korea is there was a democratic election. How throughout all of Korea before the split, democratic election. The democratic election was widely choosing the Korean Communist Party. And the US didn't like that. So instead, they backed an election that was held in South Korea by a bunch of capitalists when nobody voted, right? And then the US said, well, see, this election in South Korea proved that they want to split, so we're going to go back South Korea. So because the larger Korea didn't like that, the US went in and said, well, we're going to fight for the small amount of South Koreans that we're backing. We're going to kill 2 to 3 million of your people, and we're going to drop 600,000 tons of explosives on you. We did the same shit in Vietnam.
Who ended off better, North Korea or South Korea? Communism or capitalism?
I wonder why North Korea would have ended up worse when we dropped 600,000 tons of explosives on them. Wow.
Yeah,
I wonder why.
And
you're just disingenuous. You're just so you're being incredibly disingenuous. Incredibly disingenuous.
So can China defend itself from capitalism?
China is capitalist. China is capitalist.
But I'm talking about
you don't know what you're
China,
talking
Maoist
about.
China, communist China couldn't defend itself from a smaller country of America because China's bigger than America.
Because the U.S. backed capitalists to usurp from the inside out. And this isn't it. This again, all you're doing is proving how capitalism is worse. Because capitalism doesn't allow people to democratically do what they want to do. Capitalism doesn't care about democracy. If you vote in a communist, capitalism doesn't give a shit. They'll come in and kill all of your people in order to make sure that communist doesn't win. We did it in Chile. We did it in fucking how many do you want? We did it in Argentina. We did it in Bolivia. We did it in Brazil. We did it in Chile. We did it in Cuba. We tried to do it in Cuba. Cuba. We failed. Great. We failed 600 plus assassination attempts in there. We did it in the Dominican Republic. We did it in Ecuador, Guatemala, Haiti. We did it in Nicaragua, Panama. Like, how many do you want of just evidence that the U.S. doesn't give a fuck about democracy? They're going to kill you if you don't agree with them. So yes, oftentimes people will go, well, because I don't want this larger superpower to kill my people, we're going to have to just fucking go with the fucking program. And then the US tends to install fascist authoritarian dictators like what they did in Chile, where instead of Allende, who was democratically elected by the people, right? Instead of Allende, we're gonna back a coup to bring in Pinochet, who's going to be a dictator who kills thousands of his own people.
Wait, so in that the Korea example, we were backing South Korea, but North
There
Korea
was
was
no
backed by
South
China
Korea.
and Russia
There was
or
no
Soviet
South
Union.
Korea yet. We
Yes,
created
so the
South Korea.
capitalists in Korea were supported by the U.S. and the communists in Korea were supported by China and
The
Russia,
communists in
which are
Korea were
closer
supported
and
by the
larger than the
people
U.S.
because the people were largely voting to give power to the Communist Party in Korea. The people were voting for them. The U.S. did not like that. So because the election was not going the way the U.S. liked, they instead backed a smaller faction in South Korea that held another election that didn't allow people to vote. It was a sham election. There was no enfranchisement in this election. You didn't get the say to vote if you were in one of the northern cities, you didn't get a say on this vote. You don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just talking about the framing of America came into this little country and destroyed it when there was bigger countries, bigger than the US, teaming up against them, and yet South Korea won.
No country has a bigger army than the US. What are you talking about? No country has a bigger army than the US. No country has ever had a bigger army than the US. Since our inception, we have had the largest army.
Is not bigger than the US?
Wait. We didn't win the Korean War. We didn't win the Vietnam War. These countries pushed us out.
South Korea did.
South Korea did not win.
Look who's winning now.
South Korea did not win. In order to stop the fighting, North and South Korea just agreed to split themselves. But the people of South Korea didn't have this say. The people in South Korea didn't have this say if they wanted the split. They were forced into the split.
Would you rather live in communist Korea or capitalist
Korea is not communist. Korea is Juche. North Korea is Juche. They have their own system. They're not even communist.
There's no private property in North Korea.
North Korea is not communist. They have their own system. It's called Juche.
How is it different than not? Do they have private property rights in North Korea? Yes or no?
Private property isn't about owning a house. First of all, you can own a house in North Korea. So that's not what private property is.
Do they have private property? Do they have private property in North Korea?
I don't know because Korea doesn't tell us.
They don't. The government owns everything. They can take it and give it as they please.
We don't know. Wait, first of all, our government can do that too. We don't know what North Korea's government does because they don't tell people. They have their own system, Juche, which is their form of like isolationism because they don't want people to know this. So they specifically don't tell people what they do.
Well, it's like China. Like they don't tell people what they do, and they don't.
China absolutely tells people what they do. China has privatized business ownership. There are literally private businesses in China that operate in and out of China.
Look up does China release a census of the population? How
what does
many,
that have to do with whether people? What does that have to do with whether people own private businesses in China?
Well, I'm saying there is secrecy to China just like there is in North Korea.
What does this have to do with people owning private businesses in China? We literally know the private businesses that are owned because America works with them. We literally know, and we don't answer to the Chinese government. We answer to the CEOs of these businesses. Like what?
Yes, but you know what the Chinese government can do? They can nationalize whichever company they want to.
Any government can nationalize companies.
It's like,
what does this have to do with anything? Every government can nationalize shit if they want to. The U.S. can nationalize stuff if they want to.
But we don't.
Yeah, because we're capitalist.
That's what I'm saying. So that's the difference, right?
China is also capitalist.
They're capitalist and communist.
No, they're not. You cannot be both capitalist and communist. That's not a thing.
So you define capitalism as having property rights?
The abolition of private property would be communism.
And capitalism is having
privatization,
property rights?
The privatization of the means of production. I don't even think. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what private property is?
I have we probably disagree on a lot of definitions, so I can give my definition and you can give yours.
What do you think private property is?
Private property means an individual or individuals have a right. That means they have the absolute say so over a piece of property, over whatever it is, my cell phone,
No, that's personal
whatever.
property, not private property.
Yes, but personal property is private.
No, that's why
Because
there's
it's separated from the government.
No, that's why there's two different words for this. You
Private,
don't even know. I don't know how you can be having this conversation when you don't know what you're talking about.
There's two different words. There's two different words for trans women and women, but you don't but you disagree with that those should be the same.
Trans woman is not a separate word. It's adding an adjective to the word woman. So yeah, they're the same word.
Personal property. Personal property is not one word. Those are adjectives.
Personal and private mean two different things. Personal property is the personally owned items that you might use in your daily life. So your home, your toothbrush, your car, whatever it is you personally own that you use throughout your daily life. Private property is going to be the means of production in which are used to commodify different resources used to give back, to get to like run a country or other things like that. When we talk about private property, we're specifically talking about labor, land, capital, and technology.
But capital, what does that mean? Capital could be anything.
Capital is going to be the tools or materials necessary to create anything in like industry. It's going to be the tools and materials necessary to create these things.
But you see how those overlap, right? Like my cell phone.
Your cell phone's not house. Tools or material. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, it is a tool. It is a tool. It is a tool made of material.
You're a fucking idiot, Doug.
I use my cell phone to make money. You're using your cell phone right now to make money.
31 minutes of nonsense.